And we're live. Go ahead, Graham.
Hey, Matt, I have a question for you. The word photography. Photography, it's a great word. We love it. We couldn't have the Homemade Camera podcast without photography. So photography is two words, photo and graphy. What do those two parts of the word mean? Come on, now, quick. This is your entrance exam.
From the Latin, photo meaning light, and graphy meaning to record or something. I think.
To write. Yeah. So absolutely. Okay, so most of us are really focused. The homemade camera community, we're really focused on this whole concept of the device that does the graphy. But what we're working with is the photo, right? We're working with the light. The only thing that, for instance, my, not Instagram, my Flickr handle is Freezer of Photons. I freeze light, right? So what do we need to know in order to properly freeze light?
I think I see where you're going with that. Well, you need to know the intensity of the light. That's important.
Okay. Intensity of the light. And of course, the sensitivity of the recording medium. Those are the two parts. How do we figure out what the intensity of the light is? What is our method of doing that? How do we do that, Matt?
Well, you can measure it because
yes,
a quantity of photons is a measurable constraint.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I held up the golf ball on my fingers, although that's not a golf ball. I held up the golf ball in my fingers, and you drove it straight down the fairway. So that's half of making a good, half of it's technically it is half of the process of making a good photograph is knowing the intensity of the light, and then the other half is knowing the sensitivity of your materials. Now we have focus, we have composition, we have subject matter, we've got all those other things.
The community does not care about subject matter. We just care about focus and exposure and total sharpness.
Absolutely. So
no art here, just technical stuff. No art allowed.
So I've got this little device. Matt, can you identify this little device? And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, we are doing this also as a video. It is going out live on our YouTube channel. And this is Friday, January 29th. It is 10:17 Eastern time in the morning. We've got some video components, but I'm holding up this cube, and this little cube, I think it's less than an inch across. I mean, I could use international.
That's right. Yeah.
It's what, 7/8 of an inch?
I think it's 21 millimeters on the longest dimension.
21. Okay, right about 21. And what does that do?
What does it do? That is a digital light meter that I designed and built, and you bought one of them. So in March 2020, I started a Kickstarter for the Raveni-Labs light meter, which is this tiny cuboid digital light meter. It's very, very small. It goes on the hot shoe of your camera.
Or the cold
shoe, rather. Yeah. It does not actually, it doesn't engage with the shoe electronically. That's just a convenient mounting point. It's been pretty successful and popular. The Kickstarter, I think it was 860 backers.
Pretty good.
950 units. Some people bought more than one. And then they've been selling pretty well through Raveni-Labs.com. It's been selling really well. So
you're expanding the family.
I am expanding the family. So a couple of I guess it's been a couple of weeks ago now, I did sort of officially reveal what I'm calling the Raveni-Labs spot meter. So I felt that there was an opportunity to develop a very small and lower cost spot meter that the market might be interested in, because spot meters in general, they've got a couple of problems. Modern spot meters are really, really expensive. If you want to buy a brand, excuse me, I don't have a voice today. If you want to buy a brand new spot meter, Gossen makes one for $500 US, I believe, at B&H, and Sekonic starts at $600 US. That's if you want to buy a brand new. Now it's an all-in-one meter, like it's incident, reflective, and spot, and it does flash and other stuff. It's a pretty heavy duty, like pro grade meter. This is kind of one-stop shop meter, but $600 US. Like, I mean, if we could all drive Mercedes Benzes, we probably would, but sometimes it just doesn't fit the budget, right?
So are you a Hyundai? Then is if the Sekonic is a Mercedes, are we talking a Hyundai, or are we talking
at least a Toyota?
At least a
yeah. So I kind of thought, well, the other side, the other flip side is the old stuff, right? So like I bought this guy actually. This is a Pentax Spot Meter V, one of the venerable old vintage spot meters. I think this one was made in the late '60s.
Yeah, those
when I bought it, it was totally destroyed, and I had to open it up and repair it. The batteries, somebody had let some batteries rot in there, and the battery acid actually ate the circuit board. Because the circuit board in here is uncoated copper. It didn't have any protective coating on it, and the acid actually converted the copper into just blue strips of copper sulfate that was just sitting on the board like crystals, and you could scrape it and it would just fall off. So I had to replace a bunch of the circuit board sections with lengths of wire in order to get this one to work again. But it does work. But it's very, very large, as you can see. It's a 1 degree spot, but it's a
So let's describe it. Very, very large. It is, I would say, because it kind of reflects the shape and size. It's a small handgun size.
It's kind of handgun like. It has a full size grip. You could easily put this could easily be a 9mm. You could put a 9mm magazine in this meter.
Correct. Yeah.
It has a large lens. The lens has I have a filter on it. It's a 46mm diameter lens, so it's a viewing lens as well as a taking lens. So you look through the meter and you see the world through the meter. Inside here, actually, Pentax apparently uses a SLR pentaprism to do the image reversing so that you can see correctly. And there's a full size ground glass in there. But what they have in front of the ground glass is a little analog meter. That points to there's an EV scale, and the little needle moves back and forth. So it sort of sits. Actually, you know what? I wonder if you can see it if I hold it up to the camera. I know this is bad for the audio listeners. You can just barely see it.
Okay. So it's like think of a VU meter on an audio board. So it's an arc of meter going or an arced scale with a needle that goes back and forth.
Yeah, and so you look through the meter.
I'm going to interject here and let you guys know we have a comment from Ben Reynolds who says, I had a broken one of those Honeywell spots, and then I'm going to interject that when I bought and sold cameras, I bought dozens of these, and almost none of them worked. And even the ones that did work, I always hated. The Sekonic ones are nice, but that is a terrible meter you got there, Matt.
Okay, so let's stop right there. What did you not like about using that particular spot meter, the Pentax Spot V?
Yeah. So I didn't want to get us off on the tangent about my hatred of that. Yeah. Like, I love Pentax and a lot of their products. That was a product that, like Matt said, almost always came like somebody left a battery in it and totally corroded. Mm-hmm. It was like a very vulnerable thing. And even the ones that did work, had a 30, 40-year-old, a selenium or a cadmium cell in there. whatever the cell was, it was not accurate by the time I got it. And they're big and clunky. The viewfinders were always yellowed, and like that stupid EV scale, and then the conversion on the dial on the side, like, you know, I had a Sekonic spot meter, and it was great. And then like moving to one of these things just really, it was not my bag. I'd rather use my iPhone any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, if you need spot, it's better than nothing. But there's definitely like we were saying about the brand new Sekonic. If it's a Mercedes-Benz, this is the. It's not a Gremlin, but it's
yeah.
Is it a Taurus?
It's the Geo. It's not the Geo Metro, but it is a. It's what you drive because you need to drive.
Okay.
You need to get somewhere. But you know, it does work, and like Ethan was saying, where you have to memorize the number that you see in the viewfinder and then set it on this dial on the side. You have to set the number in order to actually compute the. I mean, it's very similar to what you'd get, you know, with a like a Sekonic incident light meter, where you read the dial and you set the you read the gauge and you set the dial. Right, it's kind of a two-step process.
And for mine, I always not only had to then transfer it to the dial, then I had to do a computation whether it was low or normal amount of light and how many stops it was off in each one of those ranges on my particular unit. It was super bad.
Yeah, recalibrating them is really hard. They do have internal calibration potentiometers, but it's inside the body. You have to like to get the back shell off of one of these. When I took this one apart, it's a huge chore to find all the screws, and you have to unscrew something around the viewfinder that's really hard to get at in order to get the back off. They're a pain to fix. I'll tell you that. I did have to fix that one. I bought it. I think I got it for $35 in unknown condition, and I was able to fix it, which made me happy.
You should have bought Bitcoin with that $35.
Yeah, it was like 4 to 5 years ago too. So,
I have a question about the Pentax. Now it's got a narrow field. That's the whole thing about a spot meter, right? It's a very small area that it's measuring. Is that a 1 degree? Often that's what I hear. It's a 1 degree spot meter.
This one is a 1 degree. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a 1 degree.
Do you see a bigger field? Do you see
You see a much larger field. I think it's 23 degrees field. It actually, I mean, it is a 2:3 aspect ratio view inside there. And then when you look through there, there's a little circle, and basically inside that circle, that's the 1 degree.
Okay.
And then you see the surrounding area. I think it's 23 degrees. I think they outline it in the manual. It's 23 degrees field of view. So it is easy to aim and stuff, you know, with that little circle there. You know, that part's fine. But it is heavy. I think it's got to be a pound, maybe more. And it's all plastic. It's just like heavy, not Bakelite, but like it's some sort of sturdy, you know, feeling, kind of brittle feeling plastic. And it's got an aluminum lens barrel. And like I said, it's got a big lens on it. It's actually a removable lens. You can unscrew it, which really just seems to let more dirt get inside of it. It's got a big long lens. The lens is 2 inches long. And then when you look in there, you can see there's like a half silvered mirror. There's a bunch of stuff going on in there. So it's a pretty major piece of kit. These old ones. The new ones,
complicated inside.
Actually, it's not terribly complicated compared to the modern ones. The modern ones have some prisms and stuff inside that make them even more complicated, because the modern ones actually, like the modern Sekonics, give you a little. There's a tiny LCD that's in there, backlit LCD, that lets you actually read out the digital values that the meter is computing. Whereas this one just got the analog needle that's just lit by whatever you're looking at. There actually is there's a tiny light bulb, although it doesn't work on this one. But it's supposed to be when you press this button, a tiny light bulb comes on to illuminate the scale for you. So if you're metering in the dark, that little little tiny light bulb is supposed to light up the scale, but it doesn't work anymore. It's not reliable.
All right.
So now what's funny is that these meters will fetch like upwards of $200 on eBay these days.
Mm-hmm.
It's only $200 more than they're worth.
Right.
Oh wait, plus shipping.
Very strong opinions. Plus shipping.
Yeah.
They're not cheap either, despite their problems. They're not cheap, and that's essentially the entry to the spot meter market. Like there is no lower than that. Like you might find a deal on one, or if you buy a broken one. I mean, you might get a broken one even if it's not listed as broken. But if you deliberately buy a broken one, maybe you can fix it if you're so inclined. But you're looking at it's a pretty high bar to entry for spot metering. So this is one of the reasons that those two reasons, rather, the expensive modern solution and the overpriced, perhaps vintage solution.
But I think you left out one solution, Matt, which is to buy a Nikon N90S for $45 and carry that around with a giant telephoto lens and use that as your spot meter for the camera you actually want to shoot with.
That's true. That would work.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people who do that. Which is sad. Or carry a DSLR or something. If you happen to have a DSLR, they often have digital spot metering, which is because they're using the whole image sensor as their meter. So it's they just ignore all the other pixels. Digital camera can cheat that way. So I mean, you want to go up in weight and complexity. You can solve the problem in different ways. So I said, this seems like, an opportunity for Raveni-Labs. So I designed the Raveni-Labs spot meter. So it's very, very small. It's designed to be
give
very,
us a little
very small.
rotation there for the viewers so we can see it before we
All right.
keep going. If you're watching online, Matt or listening in the podcast, Matt is now turned off his light, so you can't see anything. Nope, now he's
turn it up higher.
Showing us
it's one of those touch lights.
Yeah, while you're turning around, describe its physical dimensions.
So it's about 2.5 inches long. It's sort of fish shaped, which was not intentional to make it fish shaped, but it sort of has the shape of a puffer fish. It's
is it as poisonous if you eat it?
Probably.
Yeah, considerably poisonous. At the front there's a sort of the taking lens. There's a lens and a sensor on the front, and then on the rear is the viewing lens. So there's an internal screen. Mm-hmm. And this internal screen, there's no external readout at all. All the data is shown on this internal screen, and that internal screen is also how you aim it. The way that this meter works, and the reason that I was able to make a very small meter, is because this actually eliminates the pass-through optics. So whereas this giant spot meter, you actually look through it, this one that I designed, you do not look through it. How you use it is you hold it up to one of your eyes and you keep your other eye open, and it creates sort of a composite view inside your brain. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of an analog for it. It's really not that common of a thing, a method of aiming that people see, but you can it's kind of like what people do if you have a rangefinder that has a 1x magnification viewfinder. You can take your rangefinder and you put it up in front of your one eye, and you can keep your other eye open, and you can kind of see the view through the rangefinder in your right eye and the view of the world in your left eye. It's kind of the same thing, except you see no view through the eye that the meter is obscuring.
So the superposition only occurs in your brain, which sounds difficult, but is actually quite effective.
It works. Yeah, actually does work really well. I mean, you can get the barest sense of what you might be doing if you ball up your fist and put that in front of your face and look through your fist with one eye and keep your other eye open, and you kind of see just this bright spot where you're looking through your fist, right? It's not exactly the same, but it's the idea that your brain is really good at ignoring things that aren't there, basically. So when you're looking through this meter, your brain is ignoring sort of the black space around where the internal screen is, and you just sort of see these floating digits, and you see the aiming reticle in the center. So I can kind of demonstrate it by holding the meter up to the camera, because the camera can see what's going on in there as well. Apparently, it can also see reflections of my screen.
Okay.
But when you hold it right up, you can see in there, and it's overexposing pretty badly.
Okay, so let me describe what's going on. There's a circle with another circle inside it, right in the center of the screen, and then we have several digital readouts around the screen. Can you describe what those different digital readouts are?
Yeah. Right. So as you said, there's the aiming portion in the middle, and then surrounding it is various information about the readings. So in one corner, there's the calculated shutter speed. In another corner, there's the calculated aperture. So that's on the left side. On the right side, top corner is the exposure value.
Okay.
Which is read out to a tenth of a stop. And then the bottom right corner is the current ISO setting. Then at the top of the screen, it will show you sort of currently what it's doing. So when you press and hold the power/sample button, at the top it says reading right now. And then when I release that button, it says locked. So that's basically just telling you, it's reading, or it's pretty self-explanatory. Then at the bottom of the screen, it has there's a letter R, and then there's a number next to it. The number can be positive or negative, and that is the remainder. So the meter reads out the shutter and aperture values in whole stops. That's because the variety of cameras, some like, let's say, modern film SLRs, the digitally controlled film SLRs would do intermediate speeds and stops and stuff, but most cameras and most cameras only do whole shutter speeds.
Sure.
So 30, 60, 125, 250, and some of them do half stop apertures, but a lot of them, at least a lot of 35 millimeter cameras only do full stops. And you can kind of try to split them by just sticking the lens in between, but it's not very accurate.
So those notches are a full stop.
The 10 points. Yeah.
You can unclick or declick your aperture and get in between, but
a lot of them will sit in the middle. But it's not reliable, and you don't necessarily, it's. Your exposure is not going to be perfect if you're trying to split half. You're gonna get it up or down a little bit. But some large format cameras, they actually have half stop clicks, which is fine. But the idea was that have a remainder readout. So basically the shutter and aperture that you're seeing on the screen are the whole stop readout. But then the remainder readout is telling you how much the meter had to round to get to the whole stop. So if you had an EV of 10.2. The meter will round to 10 to give you a whole stop shutter and aperture combination. But then it will tell you at the bottom, the remainder is positive 0.2.
Okay.
It's telling you it had to go down 0.2 of a stop, which means if you have the ability to find something closer. Now, 0.2, you're not really, I don't see how you're going to split 0.2. But if it was, let's say, 0.4, or 0.5, then you could split your aperture, or if you had a camera with the older, the more, like 60 years ago, there was a lot of cameras that did 1/100th, 1/200th, 1/50th, some different, but it's kind of before they standardized on the set of numbers that they still use today.
Right.
There was these earlier number sets. So some cameras have that number set, basically anything made in the last 60 years doesn't.
Right. So I was just holding up, for those of you who are at home, I was just holding up a Graflex RB. This is a 3x4 SLR, and on this, and it uses a combination of tension and shutter curtain aperture to come up with, some numbers that shutter speeds that we would not normally do. Like 1/195th of a second, 1/135th of a second. So that actually, with working with something like this, makes quite a bit of sense, because it does have those aperture settings that are, or excuse me, those
strange shutter options.
Yeah, it has shutter settings that are uncommon, let's say, in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
yeah,
keep going. I'll ask my questions at the end. I got a list, and we got a bunch from the audience too. But yeah.
So where was I? We were. Yeah. So that's sort of the main display. Then. So you interact with the meter all through that rear viewing lens. That's how you see everything. And then on the top of the meter is 4 buttons. There's the power button, which is also the sample button. So you press and hold that, and it will take a reading. When you let go, it locks the reading. There's the menu button, which is also when you press and hold the menu button, that activates the compare function. So you can take a reading. So say you press the reading button, and then you get the number that you want off the spot that you want. Then you release the reading button. And now the reading is locked. Then you can press and hold the compare button, and now wherever you aim the meter, it will show you the relative EV difference from the spot that you locked it on to these other spots. So if you aim it at the same spot, it'll tell you the difference is 0.0. But then you aim. So let's say you lock it on your highlight, then you can compare it to a shadow and see how many stops different the highlight you selected is from the shadow that you're looking at.
That's super cool. I don't know of that existing in any other meter that I've ever seen.
I can't honestly. If they don't have it, I don't know how they let that out. It seems like kind of a straightforward feature.
So here's, I think that we're at the point where I'm going to ask the big question. Why do I need a spot meter versus a wide field meter versus an incident meter? So, I mean, I have some pretty good ideas, but I want to hear what your concept is. What's driving this versus the meter that you're already putting up?
I thought we were selling Matt's meter to people who wanted spot meters. You are selling spot meters to everyone. Very good.
Well, yeah, sure.
Well, so to break that down, because you mentioned essentially the 3 types of meters. Yeah. Incident. So a spot meter is a reflective meter. There's incident meters, reflective meters, and a spot meter is a variant of a reflective meter. So an incident meter reads the light more directly. So the light source, the light comes down, strikes the meter directly.
Yeah, it's usually a little white dome, a little dome plastic piece.
Let me see if I have one within arm's reach. I usually do.
I can get one if you don't.
In my junk pile.
It's but
imagine
people know what incident meters are.
Imagine my hand for the video viewers is the meter. So you can see the light is coming down, and it's hitting directly. So if my hand could measure light, I would know how bright that light is. Mm-hmm. Now my subject, if I'm trying to photograph something that's in the same light, once I know the light that's hitting the meter, I can infer that the light hitting the subject is the same, and I can use the reading I got from my incident meter to photograph the subject. What's nice about that is that the color or the appearance of the subject does not impact the meter readings. So if I'm photographing a very bright object or photographing a very dark object, the brightness or darkness of that object does not make my meter change what settings it's telling me in order to compensate for the color of the object.
So now, I always use the analogy when I'm trying to teach this concept to basic students is if you have a ninja standing against a black wall, that's going to try to give you a gray ninja on a gray wall, or the opposite,
polar bear and a snowstorm eating some ice cream.
Right.
Yeah.
Or Luke Skywalker out on Hoth, wearing the white suit in the white environment. You're going to get a gray suit in a gray environment.
Right. Well, what you have to do is then you have to understand that the meter it only sees brightness. It doesn't see the subjective, it doesn't know that ninjas are supposed to be wearing black, and doesn't know that polar bears are supposed to be white. So it simply is attempting to pick the best exposure to make whatever you're exposing for gray. It really doesn't know any better than that. So that's the problem when you're trying to photograph. Also, if you're trying to photograph a polar bear and using a reflective meter, the reflective meter goes, I don't know what we're looking at here, but it's pretty bright, so let's make that gray, right? It doesn't know that it's a polar bear. So it's going to give you numbers that maybe don't make a lot of sense for the fact that it's a polar bear. So that's an example where an incident meter is actually a nice choice because it is measuring the light itself and not measuring the brightness of the subject. Now, it's not always the case that you want that. So, for example, if you're trying to photograph an object that's in the shade, but you're standing in the sun, you can't use an incident meter reading in the sun to infer what the brightness is in the shade. So if you're at the zoo, let's say, and there's a lion sitting under a tree, and you're standing, behind the fence and you're in the sun, well, you can't get into the shade. You can't get yourself into the same light as the subject in order to get an incident reading that's accurate. And that's an example case where you need a reflective meter in order to get the reading that you want. So there's an example right there that we can then make the case for a spot meter. If the lion is in the middle of this bright open field that's all sun, but he's under the one little tree and he's in the shade, well, the lion is your subject, but the rest of this area is very bright. So if you were trying to take a wide angle reflective meter, so for example, the Raveni-Labs light meter, the shoe mounted meter, has a 45-degree cone measurement area. So if your lion is only 5 degrees of your image, and this meter's reading, 40 degrees of bright savanna on both sides, and the lion is darker in the middle, the meter basically is not going to notice that lion. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, there's a dark spot there, because you can't measure darkness. You can only measure brightness, right? So this light area is much, much brighter. And so the meter's going to go, oh, whoever, the photographer here is trying to photograph some bright stuff. So like most of what he's pointing at is bright stuff. So let's give him a reading for bright stuff. But you, the photographer, know better. You're trying to photograph this lion. So if you had a spot meter, you could single out that lion and get an exposure for him in his little shaded area, even though his little shaded area is only a small part of your photograph. Because in that instance, what you care about is the lion. You don't actually care about the rest of the savanna. So you don't want the lion to be too dark, and you get a nicely exposed empty savanna, right?
All right, I'm going to make it the classic argument for the spot meter as well. And I think Matt made a really legit argument. Frankly, this conversation bores me. I think everybody who is watching knows why you need a spot meter. I want to know how this thing works and why you designed it like it did. And I promise we're getting there. And we've got a bunch of questions from the audience about what exactly it does. But I am going to jump in because
Ethan, we were just about to get to the zone system.
Okay,
and
then take it away,
nothing
Graham.
Better than going through the zone system on a podcast.
Go ahead.
No. No. Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Matt. Yeah, let's head that direction.
All right.
Towards the design.
Okay. So, so the reason that I was able to make it small is by eliminating the viewfinder portion of the meter. Like I was saying before, you use both eyes. So your eyeball, your other eyeball, and your brain are the viewfinder, and the meter is just the meter. It's not two things in one. So that's how it's such a tiny device. And now the reason that you can aim it accurately is because of this viewing lens. So the taking lens, the sensor, the reticle on the screen, and the viewing lens are all on the same axis. So that when you look inside this thing, your vision is, this lens sort of forces your vision to be aligned with the reticle on the screen. And so what that ends up doing is that it's kind of hard to demonstrate, but if I hold it in front of the camera, I know this isn't great for the audio listeners, but when I move it side to side,
a very small angle of view, right? So your eyes.
Well, it's actually not that; it actually moves. Do you see how it's moving there?
I see.
It's a little hard to demonstrate, but
essentially,
because that lens is there, it causes the viewfinder to kind of float in space. Like when you move your head side to side, it doesn't move. It's like looking into a window. It's like looking through a window where you can see one side of your yard here and the other side of your yard here. And that's because that lens is actually, when you're looking in here and you're looking at that screen that's in there, your eyes are actually relaxed at infinity. To your eye, that screen is in the distance. It's not close to you. It's kind of like how VR goggles put lenses in front of your eyes so that you're looking at a screen that's 2 inches away, but your eyes are relaxed as if you're looking off into the distance. So that's how it lets you see, because you can't cross focus your eyes, right? Like you can't. Well, actually, maybe you can, but some people maybe can't. But it's difficult in general to look at something that's close up with one eye and look far away with the other eye, right? So this lens allows you to be looking at the subject, which is essentially in the distance, and you're looking at this tiny screen that's in front of your eye, and your eyes are relaxed and your eyes are not straining in order to be able to see these two objects at the same time. And that's all because of this rear lens. But the rear lens also is what allows it to stay aimed, even though your position to the meter and your distance to the meter change. It kind of cancels that out. It actually even almost cancels out like perspective. Like, see how big the reticle is there on the screen, and then when it approaches, it doesn't actually really get any bigger. It just reveals more of the screen. So it is like a window where when you get closer to the window, you can see more of the space beyond.
Yeah, and just to let the listeners know, those of you driving, what Matt just showed was if the meter is far from your eye, the reticle, the two circles in the center that show where it's focused are and as you bring it towards your eye, that doesn't change in size. It just and that's part of the optics.
Yeah, it kind of
that lens.
It kind of violates like the perspective rule. Like it doesn't really. It is like looking out a window optically. It doesn't conform to the perspective rule anymore. It just changes how much of the internal screen you're able to view. So it's actually designed in such a way that you can see the whole screen from about 1.5 inches away, which means if you're wearing glasses, you don't have to get your eyeball right up to it in order to be able to see properly. You can bring it close, and you can see it totally. You can see all that's available inside there from about 1.5 inches away. So you don't have to worry about taking off your glasses or something.
I like this approach. It is opposite from how I would have assumed that you would have done it, and much better than the way I would have done this, which is to limit the angle of view such that your eye has to be in exactly the right spot, such that they're aligned. But yeah, super duper clever.
Cool.
Hey, I have a question about this. I know we're not getting into technical questions yet, but it's burning. how close can you get, right? I assume this is not a spot meter for macro work, but I bet you can get pretty close for like portraits. Have you done any testing?
Yeah, well, there is a parallax, right? So because your eyeballs are not in the same spot, there is a parallax error. You can minimize it actually by turning your head as much as you can. I'm not joking. It does get your eyeballs functionally closer together.
I bet
so
you
it
can
does
get
actually
pretty close without doing that.
Well, yeah. So what ends up happening is the closer the subject, if you're using your left eye, the actual spot will start to wander to the right, and if you're using your right eye, it starts to wander to the left. So if you're trying to do highlight hunting or something, you can still totally do that, because you can kind of get started, and then you can feel out where the highlight is, and that works at any distance. So like if you're trying to pick out the highlight from, I don't know, 6 inches, not 6, a foot away, you can hunt out the bright spot, which is still effective spot metering. But if you're trying to hunt out a spot that is not significant in some way, like if you're not hunting out a particularly dark spot or a particularly bright spot, you will maybe have a harder time. But beyond like 10 feet, it's completely irrelevant. The distance between your eyes at that point is like, I don't know, like a quarter. It's like a quarter of a degree or something like that. So it becomes irrelevant. It is a problem at close. That is one of the things that these giant meters does allow, is because optically the viewfinder system and the metering system is combined. There is no there's a focus limit. Like the lens is set to infinity, so very close subjects are out of focus with these meters. But you can still spot meter up close. You just have a blurry view, which actually means that you can't spot meter as small of a spot, but it does still work. Like there's no parallax error with those. So there's a little bit of parallax error with extreme closeness. But for the majority of work, it's not relevant. And even when, Ethan, you're saying with a portrait of somebody who's only a few feet away, if you're just trying to find a highlight, you can still totally highlight hunt.
Yeah, because you have a 1 degree spot, and like even if you have some parallax, like my cheek is going to be like 4 degrees or 5 degrees. I feel like it's got to be pretty useful.
Yeah, if you wanted to get like the highlight off someone's forehead or something, it would be pretty easy to locate that spot by just hunting in the general area. It would take you only a couple seconds to find it.
Hey, so we've got a bunch of technical questions. Graham, I don't know if you're ready to move on to that, or Matt, you want to do some more like product description first?
Hey, what do you say we start the Homemade Camera podcast?
Yeah, I forgot to run the graphics. Yeah. So let me ask. This first question comes from Ben Reynolds in the chat, which is, what is the EV range? And also, you look like the Borg when you have the thing up to your eye.
So the EV range is so EV is tethered to ISO, right? So if you want to talk about EV at ISO 100 is kind of the standard. It's the EV EI scale, right? So it goes from EV of 2 up to an EV of 20 at ISO 100. So EV of 20, like the only way you can max it out is pretty much if you aim it at the sun, or if you aim it at a direct reflection of the sun.
Probably shouldn't aim it at the sun. I would assume that would cause damage long term.
Pretty quickly that would harm something. Yeah, I mean, aiming any lens system at the sun is a bad idea. Yeah, so don't aim it at the sun. But it's so it can go down to about EV2. That's one of the things about spot meters is low end sensitivity is difficult because of the because you are discriminating against all that extra light. Yeah, you're eliminating all the extraneous light. So if you're measuring a huge field of view, you're getting a lot more photons in, right?
Yeah, it's the same.
So it's tiny. We're only getting the photons from this tiny spot that's a reflected spot off of the environment. So it's very, very 99.999% of the photons in the scene are being rejected.
I would assume that you also have, instead of a tiny sensor, you have telephoto optics in the front of it. So you're taking what light there is, and you're also making it less dense across the sensor plane.
I'm no, not really. It is a focused sort of image. It's focused down, quite small. It's not. It's not a telescope sort of sort of thing.
Do you have a?
I mean, that would work, but that would make a much bigger device, right? Because you're gonna have a hard time finding a.
You have a surface mount tiny sensor.
Yeah, it is. It is a small sensor. Yeah. It's. Yeah. I mean, small device means small lens. Small lens means small focused area for a 1 degree spot. Or I'm speccing it more at 1.5. I think technically it's like a 1.1, but there's a little bit of scattering and stuff, so it's more like a 1.5%, 1.5 degree spot.
It's got to have some sort of bell curve, right? So like 1% is 90.
Yeah.
Or 1 degree is 90%, and 0.1% is another 5, and 0.2% is another.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why there's 2 circles in the aiming reticle. The inner circle is the true sort of 1 degree zone, but the circle around it is sort of a zone of influence, where if you're trying to measure a dark spot that's next to a bright spot that's like 5 or 6 EV brighter, you're going to get some sort of spillover. Essentially, trying to measure a dark spot that's near a bright spot is a really hard issue for a spot meter. So you have to, and I mean, you can see it. Like, I mean, you're watching the numbers in real time when you're metering, right? So you totally see what's happening. Like you can see that bright spot, like with your other eye, it's right there. Like, it's there. So you certainly get a sense. Like you get a really intuitive feel for what's bright and what's not bright, and how the meter handles bright areas like that becomes really apparent. It's something that's difficult to convey, in photos and videos and stuff with the meter, but you really do get a just this like intuitive sort of sense of framing it and the reading. But that is an issue that you'll see. I mean, with any spot meter, they get like even this big old guy, which has mirrors and stuff. To essentially the way this works is they have a mirror that has a hole in it, and the hole is quite small. So the light that's headed for the 1 degree spot goes through the mirror. The rest of the light goes to the viewfinder. That works really well, but it's quite a large optical system.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume that would cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to produce, like these days. I mean, thousands maybe at our scales, or even your scale is a little bigger than mine.
Yeah. I mean, that one's not so bad. It's basically a half silver mirror, and there's a circle that's not silvered at all.
Yeah, but then they have a pentaprism. You can't make that in small quantities, to my knowledge.
No, but you could probably buy a pentaprism.
Yeah. Okay. There goes the market for old Spotmatics.
Well, yeah. I mean, it'd be a huge chore, to try to build that using off-the-shelf systems would stink.
Hey, can I ask about some other theoretical designs that pop into my mind, and you can maybe tell me why those are bad ideas? I have some.
Yes.
So
sure.
just off the bat, right? Like, I bet you're using something like a 0.1 or 0.96 inch OLED display in there.
Yes.
Have you thought about decapping that thing and pulling the LCD off of the LED background, or just using like a translucent LED? Actually, I don't know if those have a translucent layer over a LED, or each pixel is its own LED.
No, OLEDs are, each pixel is its own LED, so it's not a. It is a light making device rather than a light blocking device. So yeah, you can't do it that way, but you can do something. You can do like a projection,
like an LCD screen.
If you had a half silvered mirror, you could put that in there and project on it essentially. That was something that I did play with a little bit initially as a way to make a pass-through viewfinder, but it just kind of wasn't materializing. And then I needed to figure out how to do the sensor. That was the other problem, is if you want to do that system, you have to be able to have the sensor, coaxial with the screen. So,
yeah, so I would imagine in that system like a LCD display with maybe a tiny flex PCB that's, basically just wire traces, and then you wouldn't see the spot, right? Like it would just be blocked by a little surface mount flex PCB sensor, but also, my way has like a lot of problems with it, but it's like the one that pops to mind immediately.
Well, I was thinking if you had a half silvered mirror, that you could bounce some of the light to a sensor, bounce half the light to a sensor, half the light passes through to the human, and then the same mirror could also bounce the light from the display, and then you'd have to do something about the half of the display light that also goes to the sensor zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably with half silver mirrors work both ways, right? So, I had thought about it a little bit when I was first sort of envisioning the product, but it wasn't materializing in a way that seemed like it was gonna work out.
Hey Matt, how many prototypes did you go through to get here? I assume so you kind of alluded to this when we were talking maybe a year ago, just like privately on Instagram.
Yeah.
I assume this is, if you make $600,000 on this product, you're probably making about $3 an hour for the time I assume went into such a thing. But no, seriously, you've been working on it for a long time. I guess time is less interesting to me than how many iterations of this thing you've done. Don't tell me I'm a genius. I did it first prototype worked. I don't want to hear that.
Well, that wasn't really the case. I mean, it's built heavily on the guts of the little meter, right? Sure. Like I had solved a lot of problems there that I was able to, reuse the knowledge. I just, bigger OLED. It's actually the same sensor. It's made out of the same material, the same multi-jet fusion printed nylon.
It looks very nice, like aesthetically for those listeners. Kind of a nice stippled finish. Very
it's
useful photographic absorber.
There's a texture on the top, little dimples, top and bottom, and then the buttons are actually a separate printed piece. On the old meter, is actually the tips of the buttons protrude out the top of the case. This one, the buttons are a separate plastic panel atop the actual button below. So they actually have icons printed in them. It's hard to see on camera because I don't have the light. I don't have the zoom on the webcam, but there's icons, markings printed on top of the buttons. And they're a little bit bigger, which is nice. They're 5 millimeter diameter, so they're a little bit nicer. So when you hold it, I mean, you can hold it where I put my my ring finger on the power button, and then you can use your middle finger. I put my index finger at the back to pin it. So I'm kind of holding it with my index finger closer to the rear, and my thumb underneath. And then I have my middle finger and ring finger to operate the buttons, and that works nicely as a way to hold it and operate it. What were we talking about? we got tangented there for a second.
Oh, hey, so we actually have a question from Skip Williams, which is the thing that I was thinking about, and I could not name the sort of like double image 2-eye finders, and Skip named it. I couldn't remember. It's the Voigtlander Contour.
Voigtlander Contour. Yep.
Yeah, he wonders if that was an inspiration.
I actually didn't know about the Contour at the time, and I found out about it later. the concept's not new. It's pretty common in, I think what originally inspired me was red dot sights for guns. Because there's a lot of gun optics where they want to have a virtual floating aiming tool, right? So red dot sight,
but
for
also
a gun.
very important that you keep your other eye open for most uses.
Right. Well, it's certainly more comfortable, right? I mean, I don't know if you've ever, tried to. I mean, us with cameras, like if you're sitting there, staring, clenching your face, staring through an SLR all day, like your other eye gets sore, right, from closing it. So it's nice to have both eyes open. And I mean, a lot of the problems that that firearm manufacturers have are similar to problems that camera manufacturers have. But what is really nice about those red dot sights on guns that I noticed was that, you move your head and it stays in place. And that's because the optical system of the sight is sort of pre-aligned. And the position of your eyeball is not relevant to, is not extremely relevant to the accuracy of or where the gun is pointing. You just need to be within the area that you can see that reticle. So this is kind of the same thing functionally. And then so Zeiss, or not Zeiss, Voigtlander with the contour finder, those are really nice because it's just a wide angle finder. So yeah, the way that those work is that I know you guys talked about it on a recent episode, but the way that it's all blacked out, and so your one eye is obscured except for the frame lines, and your other eye sees the scene, and that works great. Works great up to about like 35 millimeter. I think you can't really do you can't do a wide angle finder that way very easily. As you know, trying to do a wide angle finder with no optics is
it's tough. It's like a 2-look finder.
yeah. Wave your head around finder.
Yeah.
But actually, so Voigtlander did have that. Actually, the fact that existed gave me some confidence that I wasn't going to step on a patent that I didn't know about, because I figured that was sufficiently old prior art.
Yes.
That I would be safe from legal ramifications. I hope, because I didn't do a patent search, but I've never seen a meter that does this, so I'm pretty sure it's pretty safe.
I think you're fine.
So it was red dot sight for a gun. That was the initial inspiration, but Voigtlander did it first in a sense. For a camera viewfinder, they did it originally.
I have a question that I got from Instagram, and this is when I was posting earlier in the week about that I was going to have you on, and this goes back to your other meter, and it's a winter question. Okay. So this is from Stanka.mono, and here, hang on a second, I can tell you who that is. Yeah, here, hang on a second. This is John Gleason Jr. Okay. So it is, I'm a big fan of, hang on a second, I'm on the wrong thing.
He's not a big fan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I hate you.
Okay. So, and it's Probus Photos on Instagram, and it's John Gleason Jr. There we go. I love the meter, but I find that it doesn't work well, and this is the existing meter, doesn't work well in cold temperatures. Yes. If I put it under my shirt, it works fine in the cold weather. Is this going to be addressed in future iterations of the meter? So
that is a great question. So it is something that's brought to me pretty frequently. These LR44 batteries, they are so tiny. So think about batteries. All batteries suffer in the cold, right? Like cold slows all chemical reactions, and so all batteries suffer in the cold. And one of the issues in particular is that this battery is so tiny, it doesn't have a lot of thermal mass, right? Like if you went outside with a AA battery, it's just got a lot more meat on it, and it's going to take longer for it to get cold. Well, what ends up happening is these little guys, because it's inside of just a plastic, the meter itself doesn't store a lot of thermal energy either. If it was made out of metal, it would sort of hold some more heat over time. But the little batteries get cold quite quickly. and the meter starts to not turn on anymore when it gets too cold. The new meter, I've upgraded it to now there's 2 LR44s. So the power demands are a little bit lower on them because there's 2 of them. There's a higher total voltage, and so it should run marginally better in the cold. But again, batteries are batteries. They suffer in the cold regardless. It's just one of the trade-offs of size, unfortunately. So, one of the nice things, though, about this meter, because it's smaller, or because it's not camera mounted, it's a little bit easier to keep it, tucked in a warm place. Like the other, the problem with the shoe mounted meter was that you want it on your camera, and you don't want to have to take it off your camera to tuck it away, right? But if you had with the spot meter, you stick it down in your coat and you pull it out when you use it, you stick it back in your coat again. It's a little bit easier than pulling the meter off your camera or putting your whole camera inside your coat to keep it warm. But it does suffer from the same problem. I mean, anybody's ever shot digital, on a -10 day, your DSLR, goes to crap in 20 minutes anyway.
I remember shooting ice fishermen in Wisconsin with an RB67, and I get out on the lake. I'm standing on 3 feet of ice, and I go to take my first picture, and the shutter opens, and then I'm done for the day. I had to go warm the camera. Froze.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I've solved this problem differently in the past, and the answer is just my meter is 3-4 times the size by using a CR2 and like a switching voltage regulator and stepping the thing down so that I have plenty of power, but that also requires a battery the size of my thumb or half the size, and a little bit extra electronics. I don't know if you're just using like a Zener diode or switching power.
No, there is switching power in there. There's a little boost in there.
No, I don't mess with boosts. Always buck. Yeah.
I mean, it's there's I mean, if it had a AA in there, like a cold AA's can put out like more than an amp of current or something normally, but these little batteries can't put out that much power, so they suffer in the cold quite quickly. Even a cold AA will outperform one of these batteries when they're warm. So it's the price of size, unfortunately. But if you can keep it warm, there's it will work fine. It's even just the battery. Like I've told people, if you want to keep it on the camera, you can swap batteries out. Keep a battery warm, keep it tucked in your mitten or something.
Hey, I got a question.
But it's not ideal.
So if you have a boost in there, is there a limiter after the boost? Could you potentially make an adapter? Like I used to have a piece of balsa wood with 2 little tiny copper pipes that I would stick in the side of my flash when I was in high school, and I had a 6-volt lantern battery with a duct tape belt loop and a length of speaker cord, so I could use my flash a few hundred times before the batteries ran out because AA's weren't coming.
And I'm going to say at this point, no one is surprised.
Yeah.
There could be a AA adapter that would work.
Well, I mean, if you're going to go AA, why not an 18650? Or is that going to burn something out?
I think that's actually fine. At least in the new meter, that should be okay. I have to double check for the shoe meter.
Maybe for the shoe meter, an 18650 with a buck converter before your boost converter.
Well, right, because that little guy, it's only 1.5 volt battery, right? So I had to have a boost on that. There's no choice there. I mean, it seems so silly if I was to sell like the cold weather adapter that makes the whole thing 4 times larger.
Yeah, but, for the 0.5% of people who are using your camera in Canada, in northern Canada, to photograph.
I mean, it does come up a lot. It's not even northern Canada, like I mean, right now, I mean, I'm in Toronto, and it's minus 14 today. So, I mean, it's pretty inhospitable in general. But yeah, it's definitely something that people do mention to me. It's a complaint I've heard a number of times that it stops working in the cold, and there's something wrong with it. And I have to say, no, sorry, it's just the physics and tiny batteries.
Hey, so
yeah.
I think we've been on for a little bit. We've got a bunch of people watching. I think unless there's something else you guys think we have missed, now would be a good time for you to do like a quick sales pitch and like update. I mean, we've talked about the meter, but like ostensibly you'll be releasing this somewhere, and you can tell us about that, how people can get them, and then maybe we can open it up to having some of the viewers come ask you questions, the hard questions directly.
Yeah. Actually, so there's two things. Something I didn't cover is there's actually 3 operating modes that I've embedded in this device, and they're kind of like however you like to use it. You can pick these 3 modes. So there's like regular mode, which is 1 reading and that's it. And then you can do the compare function. All 3 modes have the compare function, but it's basically 1 reading and that's it. That's called single mode. Then there's a 2-spot averaging mode. When it's in averaging mode, the screen changes and it says, so you put it into average. It will say select your shadow, and then you hunt down your shadow spot, and then you let go of the button, and then it says select highlight. Press the button again, you find your highlight, you let go, and it calculates the middle point of those 2. Basically says, okay, if this is shadow and this is highlight, then middle is here.
Very
and
good.
Gives you the middle.
Does that give you a warning if you're I don't know, it's 10 stops or anything like that? It's too far post film.
It doesn't give you a warning, but it does show you the delta EV. So if you know your approximate film range, it shows you your delta EV while you're doing it. So you take your first reading, you take your shadow reading while you're taking your highlight reading. It's showing you the highlight EV and the delta EV on the screen at the same time in real time.
Awesome.
And then when you let go, it shows you EV whatever, which is the computed middle. And then you can do compare again. So now you can compare the middle gray to your scene again.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused on the term delta.
Change in.
So the difference, difference in.
Okay.
Yeah, really clever.
So that's going to give you your number of zones. Essentially.
How many zones?
Yeah. So you don't, if you're trying to meter for middle gray, you don't actually need a middle gray object in the scene, or you don't have to try to identify something that should read as middle gray. You just need your highlight. So by basically picking the highlight that you want to catch and the shadow that you want to catch, the in between should be pretty close to the ideal exposure in order to get both of those, assuming it's within your film range. Now, if your shadow is 2 EV and your highlight is 16 EV, sorry, you're not those are too far apart for most films. Then the third mode. So I reached out to a YouTuber named Nick Carver. He's a pretty popular YouTube large format shooter. He does a lot of large format videos. And he actually has some online courses. He has an online course on spot metering. And I contacted him about the meter. I said, I'm looking for people to do some trials and, tell me about the meter. Tell me what you think. And he basically said, I don't care if it doesn't work with my metering system. Like, this is how I do it, and I don't really give a shit about anything else. And so one thing led to another. His metering system is actually pretty neat. It's kind of like a zone system, but it takes you pick a spot in the scene to meter, and you use a descriptive term to describe the brightness. So basically, if let's say I wanted to meter my phone back. So my phone back here is like quite dark. It's like nearly black, you might say. So if I'm aiming my spot meter at it, I look at the thing and I say, this is nearly black, and you actually program that into the meter. So the way his system worked was it would use he'd use the spot meter, and he would put a sticker on it, and he would find the number. He was using a Pentax digital spot meter from like the 80s, and he gets like a number, and he's got this little sticker on there, and then he would reference a chart and all this process. And I said, I can make an electronic version of your system in this meter. So basically, the way that it works is you pick the spot, you place the spot, and then you compare the spot to make sure that you got what you wanted. And it's based around it's hard to describe without showing, and it's difficult to show. But in my Kickstarter video, I show it pretty well. But essentially, you pick a spot, and then you describe the spot. So if I pick the back of my phone, like I was saying, I describe it as nearly black. So I meter that spot, and then it says pick a spot. I meter the phone. It says place the spot, and then I press the arrow keys on the meter until it says nearly black, or whatever my descriptor text is. Then I press the sample button again, and it shows me the middle gray calculated based on the spot that I picked and the descriptor that I gave it. Then when you press the compare function, it will give you a text readout for the other spots in your scene in real time. So then if I said that this is nearly black, well, then I find something in the scene that's totally different. I'm looking around. So like a piece of paper that's nearly white, or it might be textureless white. I can then compare on that. And if it says nearly white or textureless white, I know that I've kind of made the right choice. So it's about leveraging your human ability to judge brightness with the meter's ability to measure brightness without any context. And you kind of merge those two together. And it's actually a really effective system, and I quite like it. And so his system, prior to the Raveni-Labs spot meter, or for using his system with other meters, you have to have basically a paper table that you are picking your descriptors from, because you have to convert your descriptor to a number, and then you can set the number on the meter. It's very, it's like a 3 or 4 step process, basically. With the meter now, with it integrated, it's very, very quick. So we came up with this.
Do you allow the user to program descriptors, or you just use his descriptors?
It's a fixed set of descriptors. They go from, there's 11 of them from...
I was going to say, are there 10 descriptors?
There's 11 descriptors. Excuse me.
What's this guy's name again?
His name is Nick Carver. And his system, he calls the system the precision method to manual metering. He
calls his method definitely not the zone system.
He does. I mean, he says it's his sort of extension of the zone system. It's like the zone system, but words, right? So rather than trying to say this is zone 3, this is a word. It's more human talk. But yeah, no, I know. But what is cool, another cool thing that the meter can do is if you know your film's latitude, you can program in the latitude for that mode.
Awesome.
You can actually set what your how many EV textureless white should be and how many EV textureless black should be from middle gray, and you can then that way it will automatically adjust those 11 point scale to match your film. So if you're shooting slide film, excuse me, if you're shooting slide film, you can change it to ±3. You can change them independently too, which is neat. So if you have a film that, like let's say you've got 5 stops of latitude of overexposure, but only 2 stops of underexposure, you can set that in this mode. You can set it up to +9 and -9, but it's fully independent, and it just shifts the scale that these words are applied to. So the way Nick Carver's method does it normally is you just have different paper scales. You have a paper scale for slide, and you have a paper scale for black and white, negative. This you can just adjust it in the meter, and it will, stretch and squeeze the scale accordingly. So that's a really cool feature that I'm pretty excited about. I didn't even know about his system until I mean, I know about the zone system, but I didn't know about his like word-based system until I talked to him about it. So we've kind of came up with a partnership there that my meter can now integrate his system, and that's really cool. I'm actually really excited about that, and he's really excited about that too.
Okay, so our next step is, where can I get one? How can I get one?
That's a good question. So it is coming to Kickstarter on February 8th. Basically the reason that it's coming to Kickstarter instead of like straight to sale is that I want to be able to get, a big, I got to buy, lots of
large
parts
orders of components are the
only
way
I need a big
do
order. Yep, I need a big order. Ethan knows all about this stuff. So I'm trying to get a big order.
100 control boxes. Looks like I am frozen somehow here, and also you are frozen. Oh no!
Yeah, we've got some
hang on.
issue. Yeah, You set that box down on something. I think.
Dismiss.
So
okay, Matt's back. Sorry. Why are you gone? Oh my god.
Yeah. So
okay,
this is
I'm gonna fix
the
this,
fun
you guys.
part of doing a live show. According to Ben Reynolds, I'm the only one live. There we go. So yeah, we're getting back. So we still have audio going, right? So Matt, and it looks like we're back running.
Yeah, you guys are back. I'm gonna fix myself in a second here.
Yeah. So it's on Kickstarter.
It will be on Kickstarter February 8th. Yeah.
February 8th. Tell us about the pricing scale and those types of things.
So it's the price is $225 Canadian. It's about 185 US right now.
It's 75 cents US, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So so it's about I think it's about 185 US at the moment. That's a third of the price almost of the next available brand new spot meter. So it's aimed at that Toyota market and not the Mercedes-Benz market. And I'm hoping that it sort of meets the needs of like a modern large format shooter who's somebody who maybe does a lot of hiking, is carrying a lot of stuff already, doesn't want to carry a giant meter on a big hike because they've already got a giant camera to carry.
And this is easily pocketable. There'd be nobody out there, who's not
got a pocket. It's got a lanyard loop on the bottom, so you can wear it around your neck or you wear it around your wrist or wherever you'd like. And it's very light. It's like, I don't know, 35 grams metric, not grams imperial. So
that would be heavy.
It's like an ounce, a little more than an ounce, I think. 27 grams in an ounce. So it's very light and very portable. So that was one of the goals there. What else? And that it's kind of stripped out of some of the more elaborate features that like a lot of these studio cameras, they've got flash modes and all this stuff, and flash radio receivers. Like if you want a spot meter and you're a large format shooter, you probably don't use flash very often, or you probably don't need some of those really like studio heavy features. So having less of that stuff helps to just make it easier to use. It doesn't have $100 on it. Ethan's flying around back there.
Sorry, I was fixing some cameras and such. Okay, so you guys ready to take some call-ins?
Sure.
All right.
I just want to say, I do have the Kickstarter video. It is on my my YouTube channel. It's there. I just put a link in the
I have it up. If you search YouTube for Raveni, Reveni,
put it
to come up with
video description at some point.
If you search that, it doesn't jump to the top. It's mostly reviews of the the other meter. But if you use that link there, Graham, if you put that link in a public place for them,
we'll put it in the video description. So if you're watching this ex post,
I'm sorry, that was the wrong link. That was the link for the old
We'll put
one.
the right link in the video description. So when you're done watching this,
that's better.
After the fact, and just click on it in our video.
It is still unlisted. I haven't. I thought I had made it public, but I haven't.
Well then we won't.
But you can find it with that link, so that's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why it won't come up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But people can see it there, and that, I've got some video showing the internal screens and stuff a little more clearly than I can do with a webcam. Mm-hmm. So you'll get a better sense of what the modes look like, and what you're actually seeing inside the viewfinder when you're using it.
Okay, so now if anybody wants to come ask Matt a question or just chat about digital electronics, Graham's favorite, the link is at the bottom of the screen. And yeah, I will put you on screen. I have studio mode queued up in OBS. See if we get anybody. There's a few people watching. Yeah. So while we're waiting for anybody to come talk to us, I got a question. You may or may not. You probably want to hear it now, and then like a month from now, when you're just like under a pile of circuit boards that break your camera, you won't want to hear it. But like, what are you thinking about next that you don't mind talking about?
I've got. Sorry, I'm just messaging. I have another podcast scheduled for later. I'm trying to push it back a little.
What? You're not exclusive?
Them.
I know how this works.
Yeah, Ethan knows.
You're tartan.
Podcast junket.
Yeah.
Sorry. What's next? I don't know. I was trying to think. I've been trying to think of something cool for incident meters, like something that's, I guess, revolutionary or something that makes a incident meter easier to use or whatever. I haven't decided yet.
Headlamp mounted incident meter.
Yeah, you hold it up and then you use Bluetooth to an app that runs on.
You mount it to your head.
No, you mount it to your head. It's a hat meter. No, I've been trying to figure out something that would be interesting in the incident market. I did actually design an incident meter that's really, really small, and then I realized I was making a mistake. There's a difference between small and miniature, and this meter trended into miniature. So it's like, do you know what I mean? The difference between small and miniature.
The way I would go is like to try and make the world's largest light meter. I think I could get one to like this big.
Well, sure, but what I mean was that it was like a normal meter, but just tiny, and so it wasn't any better in the way that it was tiny. It was just tiny, and so I was like, that's not what I want to do. I have to avoid miniature. If I want to do small, I have to avoid miniature. So I put that on pause, and I've been thinking about it more. I haven't decided yet what I think would be a cool way to do an incident meter. I'm still pondering that. And then
by the way, I'm pushing for that because I'm a huge incident meter fan. That's the way I love metering. Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about like some kind of incident meter that doesn't, something you could have sort of on you, but it's not in your way. Like it's not around your neck. It's not in your pocket necessarily. It's just sort of like if it was strapped to you somehow in a way that was easy to use, that would be cool. Something that doesn't like get in the way of your two hands for your camera at the same time.
This is what I'm saying, man. Head mount maybe with like a heads-up display on one eye.
Instead of the propeller on top of the hat, it's just a big globe.
Big dome. Big dome.
Exactly. And it Bluetooths into your like the M2.
What if I had an earbud and it just constantly read out shutter speeds and apertures in your ear?
Oh, that sounds incredibly annoying, but I think that would be
like F2,
technologically awesome.
F4, 1/500th.
F2,
or you like you tap your head. No, that's what you do. It's got a button up there too, right? So you tap your head and it reads out the thing.
Oh, I can just see.
What do I need? Boop. And it reads it in your ear.
Okay. I can just see my encounter with the police when I'm out shooting. You know, I'm shooting somewhere where I shouldn't, and I start saying, you know, F2 1/500th, F2 1/500.
Where you shouldn't be in Florida.
Exactly.
How about so as you go down this road, I think there's some like adjacent products that probably use a lot of similar software, maybe different sensors or whatnot. Have you thought about either flash meters or building TTL or thyristor flashes?
Building flashes?
Yeah.
I haven't thought about building flashes. But flash metering is interesting. I don't, at the moment, don't really even understand how it works. I guess they have some sort of high-speed photodiode, and they're sensing it very quickly, measuring it very quickly, so they can kind of make a plot of the total, photons in some certain time, and then it has to be like within some sort of time domain. It has to be synchronized.
Or it has like a array of photodiodes, and they trigger up to a certain one. I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. I don't think an array of photodiodes lends itself to be small. But
no, but there's a thing about that, like cumulative capture. Yeah, I don't. I haven't looked into it. I don't know. Like I don't have a good sense of how many people are actually using, doing like studio work where they have flashes, that many synchronized flashes and stuff. Like if you're doing flash,
and if you do these days, you just use a digital camera.
Yeah, especially because like all the Polaroids and the peel apart is so expensive and stuff. Like you can't really. It's a lot harder to do the sort of pre-testing, right? You could use a digital camera to pre-test your photos, I guess, test your flash and stuff. But it's I don't know how much of a demand there is for that. Like ambient light and natural light or always on light seems to be much more, especially now that they have like cold lights, right? Like CFLs and stuff, LED. You don't need blaring like heat pump lights that are roasting your set.
You can't see this now, but I have a softbox lighting me that's 3 by 4 feet, and I use this huge one because it's cold in the shop, and it puts out a nice warming glow. It makes me a lot less cold. Very impractical.
That's dual purpose, right?
Really. Ethan has a white sweatshirt on, and it's so much heat it's turned red on his.
Burning him.
So, hey, we've been joined.
Hang on.
Yes.
Yep.
And transition. Andreas, you are live. And also muted. You got to unmute yourself.
Andreas, love your logo. Love that logo. Very nice. Yeah.
Have a silent guest.
Yeah.
Once again, the fun of doing a live podcast, live YouTube show.
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Andreas, do you have a webcam, or are you just a symbol? The photographer formerly known as Andreas Mass? And
and he's gone.
Now we've got Francois.
Hey.
Francois, you were also muted.
There we go. Oh, now he's unmuted, but I still can't hear him.
Yeah. It looks like you have a mute on your headphones as well. So, yeah. We're not hearing it yet.
Oh,
hey Matt.
I hear his port crackling.
Yeah. Hey Matt, when this is done, I know you got to go to another podcast, but
don't worry about it.
We need to offline talk a little bit about your webcam setup if you're going to be doing this. I think you know.
It's too bad.
You can improve.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
For almost no money.
I know. Well, it's my laptop, and then there's no room for lights in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to move somewhere in the room.
Do you own a digital camera?
The only digital camera I own is a Sony RX100 Mark I.
Does that have HDMI out?
You know what? I think I might actually.
If it does, then I have a $13 product for you.
It does have HDMI out.
Okay,
this is beautiful though. But the HDMI is next to the tripod socket, so you can't. At the same time. Look at that! It's
you
so
just need
close.
Like $6,000 worth of machining to get that to work.
So
anyway.
this is the tripod you use. That's the tripod I use, which is a beanbag.
That's a good idea.
So, Francois, we're not hearing you yet. Something's. Oh,
bonjour. I heard. I mean, his port was crackling a lot. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Something wrong with his mic.
Yeah, it does look like when he talks, the volume is going up and down. So, is it any? Excuse me. Is it anything I know?
No sound.
No sound. Great. Yeah, Francois's got a homemade computer.
Yeah, it's the homemade camera podcast, not the homemade computer podcast.
Homemade Linux laptop from the trash podcast.
Homemade problem podcast.
Okay. Okay. Andres Mass asks, at Matt, do you remember our InstaChat in a digital level in a potential future Riveni project?
Oh yeah, somebody. I guess it was Andreas. Was talking about a digital level. He told me about one. If it was him that I'm remembering, that's there. There was one from Japan or something. It's a digital level, and it beeps at you if it's off level, and it's got a bunch of LEDs. And I think when you put it on your hot shoe, you can see the LEDs out of the in your peripheral vision while you're looking through the viewfinder. Mm-hmm. It is kind of cool. I think it only does like left right angle.
Well, that's what you need
for the horizon. Yeah. But it was neat. I hadn't put any more thought into it because I was just kind of working on the spot meter.
I have a prototype for the Tweet Hammer, which is a hot pink plastic hammer that when you slam it down, it tweets a bunch of pre-programmed things. It's probably not a great product. It's a little Wi-Fi device, but it has, a $2 IMU in it that can give you all of the data pretty inexpensively. But I guess displaying that data in a useful way might be issue.
Yeah.
Well, he was saying that he likes this one because it makes noise. Beeps and stuff.
He also says he has one that is 2-axis and one that is 3-axis. So
3-axis.
Yeah.
Can you have level? You can't have level in 3 axes, can you?
No, but you can have rotational information, I guess.
I guess, yeah. I don't know how that would be relevant. It's like if you only want to take photos that are like northbound.
Maybe maybe it's useful when you're setting something up on
It could
a
be,
copy
yeah.
stand for digitizing film. But I just drop my phone with a iHandy level on it when I do it.
He says, my bad, 1 axis and 2 axis.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Actually, that product I looked it up. You can buy that. Oh my god! Francois doing this robot impression.
Yeah, we heard you for a second there, Francois.
That's your modem, Francois.
Yeah.
He's got a RJ11 to 3.5 millimeter jack adapter.
Oh my god! I've been soldering those for 3 days.
Yeah, I do like the level idea. I do get some good tips every now and then from people with cool ideas. I actually was thinking about doing a viewfinder, a programmable viewfinder, or essentially you would have it would be kind of like the Voigtlander contour, but that the screen that's in there would let you adjust. You could dial in the frame line. So if you put it on like a 6x12 camera, you would dial in a different frame line. And if it was a 6x6, you dial in a different frame line. And then you can
be able to do different focal lengths.
Yes. So the idea would be you dial in the focal length. So there'd be a maximum of like 35 millimeters, probably equivalent, right? Everything would be equivalent. But I guess you could program in whatever you wanted. But so basically, like there'd be the maximum bounds that the screen can possibly see, and then you could set vertical lines and horizontal lines to like draw a box. So you could say 6x9 on your 100 millimeter equivalent, and it would be a box here, and then 6x9 with your, so you have to have everything kind of equivocated. Although you could probably, if I could, I'd make them so you could name them. So like, if it's your 90 millimeter Schneider Super Angulon on a 6x12. So if the 90 is like, I don't know, it'd be a little tough to figure that part out. And a lot of that gets put on the user, but it would be cool because it'd be like adjustable frame lines. Actually, it'd be really cool if you could do it with a wide angle finder. Like I have a 21 millimeter round finder that I got on eBay. It has no frame lines at all. But if you could put like a screen overlay on that you could then draw boxes that would let you, frame out a 6x17 or a 6x6, or if it was farther away, it could be cool.
I will tell you, having as many Kraken 612s out there, it comes with a plastic finder system where you slide in and out the front element and the element. The front frame and the back frame slide in and out, and as they're sliding in and out, they give you different views of different lenses. The big problem is, if you're putting a 65 millimeter lens on there, you have to move your head back and forth. Well, all I'm saying is that is one of the biggest issues that I've gotten as feedback, is that viewfinder. In our last episode, we had, who was it who stopped by? Oh my God, he was here today. He asked a question.
Eric Maffey?
Wasn't it Skip Williams?
Skip Williams, thank you very much. Skip Williams was talking about that. This is an example of, this is from, it's super tiny. It's the size of your thumbprint kind of, and this is a 28 millimeter 3x2, it's a 28 millimeter with a 35 millimeter aspect ratio. And this was from AliExpress, and it cost me $15. And I thought, oh my God, I'm getting a steal. And I think that the stealing went the other way, but it because it doesn't focus. I mean, it's not.
You can't see through it.
Oh, it blurs everything that it shows, no matter what the distance is away. But it does a really good job of giving you that 28 millimeter equivalent. So if you could do a combination, any sort of combination, starting with something that's relatively wide, I think that would that's a market that I really think that there's a market for that.
It would be really cool.
Let me say that a different way. It's not that there's a market for it. There's a need for it, and there's a demand for it. So, which is a better way of saying that.
Yeah, it's something I want to play with for sure. Because I think it would be pretty cool, especially in the homemade builders. Like it's nice to have, like you can deal with the over, like I made for the 21 that I have. I made this little aluminum slip over mask. Mm-hmm. And that's fine, but it's only one size, right? Like it's off the thing right now, and I'm liable to lose it because I've been using that same viewfinder on 6x6, and that, and I don't have a proper mask. I only made one mask, and then so it just has no mask right now, and that thing's just floating around like I'm bound to lose it if I don't put it back on something.
Yeah.
But
hey, we have Francois back. You want to try your audio?
Can we hear him? And can't hear him.
Cannot hear him. Francois, when you can make a sound, I will put you on screen. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask some. I think we've beat this horse, but I'm still curious about some other things. So, so something that I deal with all the time, and I'm sure you are dealing with more and more now, is I have personal projects that I am 100% sure there's no market for. For example, I've been really interested in building laser cut pendulum clocks of Galileo's never produced design, although other people have produced them, but Galileo never did. And maybe that will be a kit one day, but you can buy pendulum. Oh God.
That was Francois. We got some static. We got some feedback.
You can buy pendulum clock kits for less than the materials that I'm interested in putting into building a really nice clock. Okay, this is something that I've put off and put off and put off as I spend days and weeks and months actually building things for people. I wonder, you're an interesting guy. Looks like you've been milling some steam engine parts.
Yeah.
What else are you interested in, either non-photographic or photographic, that you were just talking about a one-off, and it kind of reminded me that Matt's probably working on some cool stuff that the market will never see.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I get obsessed with something and I waste a lot of time on it. At the moment, I don't know. It's cold here, and I haven't wanted to turn on the heat in my garage. So it's a time of the year where the garage suffers. But I was working on recently a grinder attachment for my lathe. So I bought this 500 watt spindle brushless DC motor. That's supposed to it comes with a mounting thing and a power supply and a bunch of other stuff. And I think it's supposed to run at 20,000 RPM at 48 volts.
On a different axis than the lathe.
Yeah, so the idea would be you put that on the tool holder, and then you spin the part, and then you bring that in, and you can grind IDs and ODs on like a hardened piece of steel or something. And that's something that was, I guess, going to be a winter project that I haven't got around to doing yet. And I've been building a steam engine. I got kind of sidelined. I forget why.
When I saw you start building a steam engine, I thought, well, we're not going to see anything from Matt for about 6 years. Yeah. I was, one, excited, and two, disappointed.
Yeah, big steam engine or?
Oh, hey, there we go. Yeah, it's a casting kit from England. So it's designed to run on actual steam. I don't have a boiler that can run it. I did build a very small steam engine about 8 years ago now, I think, and a very small boiler that runs out of water before the engine gets up to temperature, which is kind of annoying. But I bought this casting kit. I forget what tricked me into doing it. I I think I saw it on Kijiji or something. It was on sale. Some guy had bought it from some old guy, and was never going to do it. So he was selling the castings. I think the castings are actually 50 years old, which is bizarre. It's already half a century old. It had never been touched. So I bought that and started working on it. And I forget what sidelined me, but I got pushed off the project.
I'm a huge fan of the old Mamad kits. I bought one when I was 12, and yeah, they were a lot of fun.
The Mamads are really cool. But I had a Mamo when I was a kid and it vanished. I don't know where it went.
Somebody eBayed it, because when I eventually eBayed mine, it was I sold it for the same price that I bought it for 35 years later. You know,
right?
That's not very good profit.
Plus or minus inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about inflation? No inflation.
Most things go down in value.
So those Mamides seem to go up. Well, actually, what's funny is the manual comes with this. I had the original instruction sheet, and it says that the original castings cost £1 and 10 shillings or something. And now the same company still makes it, and it's £96. The same castings, and I think even it says you could buy the finished model from them, completely machined and painted and everything, for like £8, which apparently was like 4 weeks of pay or something back then.
Yeah.
Crazy, but it just seems insane that you could buy this completed kit for £8, and now you can buy the raw castings for £96. Well, only a mere 50 years later.
Unbelievable.
Or maybe even longer, 55 years.
Instead of running it on Steam,
sorry, go ahead.
Could use it on compressed air or something.
Yes, yeah, that's my plan, is to run on compressed air once it's ready. But I don't know when I'm going to get back into working on it, because it's a chore. Even the drawings are so old. There's no tolerances. They only dimension, I guess, what they thought was important and nothing else. And there's no sort of guidance on how to hold any of these items, like turning the crankshaft. They just like do it. And it's a lot of it is like a figuring out, because I only have one set of castings. If I ruin something, I either have to order a new casting or make it from like solid stock. So I was going like very slowly through the whole thing, and correcting errors where I can, because I keep making mistakes. No fatal mistakes yet with it, but yeah. So I it's hard to get in the garage though when it's so cold out. I even just in my house, my dark room's 14 degrees today Celsius. So because it's in my basement and it's in a back room that's next to the furnace room, but still doesn't get any heat for some reason.
Actually, if you have a furnace like ours, there's a cold air intake for the combustion chamber and the chimney. So
yeah,
it's really cold in the furnace room.
No, mine's one of the modern ones with the external outdoor heat exchanger, where the burning air comes from outside and then gets exhausted outside through plastic pipes. So, but so that's my other. I guess that's my other hobby is making stuff and machining and that. Well, I mean, they cross over a lot now, but been trying to work on personal projects sometimes. But that's about it.
Hey, Francois, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, it's not a question really, but more of an idea, because when I heard you talk about the incident light meter, I instantly thought of doing something either like a watch or like the Doctor Who's sonic screwdriver. With the dome on top and, something like pen-shaped or...
I would rather...
Because right now, I got my meter here, and it's this, well, not big, but rather big Sekonic.
Right. Yeah. I would rather have you do an incident light meter that's more like K9, that you could send out to the spot and have it meter, and then it could come back.
So you want to meter on an RC car. So you want just want to strap it to an RC car.
Just make it in the shape of a dog toy.
There we go.
You could do that. Take your phone, right? Take a phone and run a light meter app on there, and then mount that on an RC car, and then do like a screen share to your other phone. Drive it out to where you want to meter on a little RC truck, and there you've got a portable, incident. It's like a photo assistant.
Okay, but the
RC
lion would eat the truck. Okay. Do we have anything else that we need to cover in this podcast?
Oh,
probably not.
Yeah, probably. Well, maybe because we got a new visitor on.
Do we?
Got Andreas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back.
Oh,
Andreas, your mic is muted.
You're muted through Google Meet.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hello, Andreas. Welcome
Sorry,
to
before it was by mistake, but I thought I would jump in just for a second.
Where are you calling in from in the world?
Oh God, I hear myself twice. This is horrible. I will. Anyway,
Mute YouTube.
Yeah, I just did. I joined first time by mistake. This time I'll try to make it just quick because I mentioned digital level, and I'm using it. I'm not sure if you can hear it.
I heard it a second ago. Yeah, the beeping, and then you can see the LEDs. Yeah.
Basically, it stops beeping when it's level. And it's surprisingly accurate because you can change the sensitivity of it. And once you place the camera down on something flat, you can zero it out. So it's not reliant on the hot shoe levelness. And that's a real neat thing because I love the Mamiya 7, but I don't like how the viewfinder is quite inaccurate because it's got the rounded corners. And sometimes when I'm really sure that the shot is perfectly level, could be that something is, I don't know, out of whack inside, but too often my shots are not level enough, even though it feels like they are. And with this, because it's so tiny up top there, I can easily compose a shot and I can hear it. And so at night, I can even turn out the sound, the noise it makes, because at night it's dark enough that I can actually still composing through the finder, I can still see the LEDs glowing. But it's really invaluable once you get used to it because it's so tiny. It's just a kind of peace of mind that once you've composed your shot, everything is level as you think it is. And having something like this, I know it's an add-on. You don't need something like that in a meter, but seeing how tiny they made it, and it's basically, I don't know, maybe 70% of all this size is just the battery and a few LEDs. If this could be added to any kind of product that could be mounted on a hot shoe, I don't see how it would, especially if you make it only through sound, so you don't even need LEDs. It could be an easy kind of, I don't know, added feature. Not sure how many our people are out there with my needs, because I feel like some cameras and their viewfinders are inaccurate as I feel they are. So maybe it could be something people don't even know they need. Not sure. And
I kind of like the audio part of it because sometimes when you take pictures, they're crooked. And if you have those little bubble meters, not bubble meters, but bubble levels, well, you got to take your eye off and look at the bubble, and it's kind of it could be added though to the LCD screen on the little exposure meters, but then you need to add a tilt meter inside also, so it would make it a little bit bigger. But
well, this is the second one. This is the second one. It doesn't, for some reason, they removed the audio feedback from this one. But this one shows you basically if something is level on both axes. It's also neat, but it's more like you need to look at it from the top. That's kind of
you can't
a boop for both axes.
Yeah, that's all I want to say. I hope I didn't disturb too much, but this way you can at least see how big it is, and that maybe, I don't know, maybe there's more people like me who would love to see a new product. Because when I bought this one, I used it while I was staying in Hong Kong for many months, and I broke it. I accidentally sat on one, and then after I came back to Germany, I was trying for months to find this particular small one with the audio feedback, and there's nothing like it available. And the only one I found was the exact same manufacturer, based somewhere in China or Hong Kong. And a guy I met in Hong Kong who was a camera shop, he was able to import it from China and then send it to me, because otherwise I had no way of buying another copy. So as of now, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's more demand for this and people just don't even know that a product like this could exist.
It's not a bad idea. Yeah, I'm curious. I'd be curious what the actual interest would be from people, because it's a pretty straightforward product. But right. I don't know how many people would actually want to buy it. It's not something like, I mean, like when you have a digital camera that has that sort of artificial horizon feature, you're kind of like, oh, that's neat, but
yeah, the horizon feature can also take away from the like, what I like about it is that the audio feedback, especially if you make it less obtrusive, because this sound is annoying as hell. So if you can make it something more quiet, then it's basically a different sensory level where you don't feel like you have to focus on it visually. So you can really just at some point you get into the hang of it, just composing, and the sound is just a reassuring kind of feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something. It's something that deserves more thought for sure. It's,
that's all I want to say. I hope I didn't take too much time. And
thank you for coming.
I'll be out again.
Yeah, thanks.
See you around. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I think now is probably a good time to start wrapping this thing up. I want to thank Matt for coming on. If you are interested in Matt's products, go to Raveni, Raveni -labs.
Nope.
Reveni.
Oh, damn it! I'm sorry. We'll have the link in the description below, and a link to Matt's product video for the new spot meter. Matt, is there anything else you want to say, or links you want to share?
At the moment, I think that's it. I do have a pre-page. What do they call it? Pre-launch page for the Kickstarter. I'll send you guys the link for that too. If somebody is worried about missing it, you can subscribe to be notified when the Kickstarter goes live. And yeah, I sent you guys the link for the video so people can watch the video, Kickstarter video. And that's all. February 8th, it will be up for 30 days. So feel free to head on over there and back it if you're interested in getting one. So the planned ship time is August of 2021.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's really close to being ready. Actually, I'm not overly happy with the battery drawer that I designed. It seems to occasionally have some contact issues, so I'm thinking about changing it to batteries that go in through the bottom with some kind of cover. I haven't decided if it's going to be like a like a little coin door. Yeah, I want to make it toolless, but maybe I would do like a bayonet lock with a coin slot, or some kind of door that slides over. I haven't decided yet, but I'm planning on changing the battery entry compartment. But other than that, it's working really well. There's about half a dozen of them in the hands of some YouTubers and people around who. Like Nico from Nico's photography show has one. And they've been giving me some feedback. and it's all been positive, except for a couple little software bugs and that sort of thing. So it's basically, pretty much ready to go, and the manufacturing stream is like identical to the previous light meters. So all the assembly kinks and sourcing kinks are sorted out. So I'm confident in the August time frame. The only problem would be is if I sold like many of them. I'm not so sure about trying to hire help in the COVID times. If I need assistance. So we'll see. There's a possibility that that too many would be a bad thing. But
well, Canada has reserved 6 COVID doses for you.
Just for me,
and for 6 for Francois, and 6 for every other Canadian. So
I wish.
Yeah, but they haven't got
to have people shoot them.
Yeah. So I'm feeling good about it, and it's going to be a success either way.
Great. I feel good about it too.
Yeah. Actually, I was impressed with the design at first. So, because I was thinking of doing one myself, because I pretty much build everything myself, and I looked at this and I went, that's interesting.
But Francois, how thick would the plywood be on yours?
Actually, I thought of building one this year using the sensor from a cell phone for the not the camera side, but the side where there's the sensor for how close you are to your ear or something like this.
Sure.
Because it uses a light sensor, and that thing, is pretty sensitive. So I was thinking of using something like that, and and it would be plywood, most probably.
Okay, stay tuned for next time we talk to Francois about plywood light meters.
Plywood, everything. Plywood's the magic. Plywood and cardboard.
Okay, I can leave this chat on for you guys. Graham?
So Matt, do you have any shout outs? Anything, anybody you want to say thank you to? Anybody you want to mention?
I mean, Nico Yaseda from Nico's Photography Show. He's always out there, pushing film stuff. He's a big help to the community. So I always like mentioning him. All you guys are great. Graham and Nick and Ethan. And Nick Carver as well has been a big help with this project. And Matt Marash from the FPP has one of the meters. I know he's doing a video soon where he talks about it and gives his thoughts. I know he's been enjoying it. And there's a couple other guys. So it's exciting. I'm really happy that the film community is excited in this stuff. That they want to buy the things that I come up with. So I'm happy about that. And it's my full-time job now as well. So I'm happy about that too. So yeah, it's really good.
Good. Hey, Francois, do you want to shout out to anybody?
No shout outs, but a tip for those who photograph in cold weather. Think strapping a hand warmer to the battery grip of your camera with some tape.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. There we go.
These things are cheap like dirt, and
you're thinking of one of the chemical ones where you
break them. Yeah.
Okay.
And you strap it. You either tape it to whatever there's a battery on, and it'll just put enough heat to the materials to keep the battery going.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ethan, do you have any shout outs? Anything that you want to mention?
Yeah, Azrael Knight was doing some interesting thing with a bunch of other YouTubers on Film February is some contest thing they're running amongst a lot of channels. But I'll just say if you're interested in it, go check out Azrael Knight's Film February channel. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they also got a website, and it's a contest where they judge an entire roll of film, and it's filmfebruary.com, I think, or something like this. And there's some prizes, and when you participate, there's a processing fee by the Indie Film Lab, and they give 20% off to everyone. So.
Okay, cool. Nick is not here today, so we want to thank Nick in his absence. We also want to thank Robbie Cribbs for producing the music that you're not hearing on this episode, because Ethan and I have been distracted and we have not put together the proper opening and closing to the YouTube Live versions. But that'll be coming up, and you'll hear it again. So Robbie Cribbs of Soundtrap Studios. Thank you, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie.
Robbie.